World health experts said today the Ebola outbreak in West Africa is out of control. And the head of the World Health Organization warned of what she called catastrophic consequences if it continues to deteriorate. At least 728 people have died in Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. 2 American aid workers and missionaries in Liberia were infected as they were helping Ebola victims. 33-year-old Dr. Kent Brantley and 59-year-old hygienist Nancy Wrightbowl. They're coming home to the U.S. for treatment in an Atlanta hospital. They'll be the first Ebola patients on U.S. soil. Vicente Arenas begins our coverage.
The 2 missionaries will be flown from Liberia to Dobbins Air Reserve Base in Marietta, Georgia. The jet is outfitted with a portable tent-like device called an aeromedical biological containment system. The patients will be transported individually. Once on the ground here, an ambulance and law enforcement escort will transport the patient to Emory University Hospital 20 miles away. Dr. Bruce Ribner heads Emory's infectious disease unit and will help treat both patients.
And we feel that we have the environment and expertise to offer them the maximum opportunity for recovery from these infections.
Bruce Johnson is president of the group that sponsored Wrightbowl's missions.
Obviously, this virus has taken a lot out of them. They're very weak, but responsive, being able to get up, take care of their needs, and are conversing with loved ones, with their doctors. So that's really encouraging.
Once in the United States, Dr. Brantley and Wrightbowl will be put in this isolation unit at Emory, separated from other buildings. Visitors must stand behind glass windows and use an intercom system to communicate. CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden says hospitals in the United States have the resources to contain the virus.
Any isolation unit in the U.S. can care for an Ebola patient safely. What you do need is meticulous attention to detail.
And what is that meticulous attention to detail?
That means full precautions. It means careful disposal of all of the materials and potentially contaminated items. Ebola virus, unlike some other organisms, isn't actually hard to disinfect. So it's not so much a question of the virus being hardier than other viruses, it's just because the stakes are so high.
The first patient is expected to arrive here at Emory University Hospital within the next couple of days. And James, that same plane is then going to turn around, head back to West Africa, and pick up the other.
Vicente Arenas in Atlanta, thank you. Well, President Obama said today he takes the Ebola outbreak very seriously. It comes as he is about to host a summit of African leaders in Washington next week. He said some participants from at-risk countries will be screened before they leave for the U.S. and when they arrive. So how concerned should Americans be about Ebola? Dr. John LaPook joins us now. John, the question that everyone wants to know the answer to is whether we are at risk of an outbreak here.
Right, understandably, people are concerned. The CDC and every single Ebola expert I've spoken to have said the same thing. Even if a traveler accidentally brings the virus into the United States, the odds that it's going to spread widely are very, very low.
So why would it not be the same case here?
There are some real differences between Africa and here. In Africa, there's a real lack of supplies and personnel. There are some burial practices where family members help prepare the body and they can accidentally or intentionally touch the body and become infected. And then there's severe mistrust of doctors. And you can understand why. People enter hospitals, they don't leave, so people are actually running away. Now, people may be surprised to know there's a lot of experience with Ebola outbreaks in Africa over the last 4 decades. There have been dozens of outbreaks, and people have learned some lessons. For one, early diagnosis. Then you isolate the patient, you track down their contacts. And the CDC says we are totally set up to do that here in the United States.
Late today, Israel and Hamas agreed to a humanitarian ceasefire in the war in Gaza. It's to start tomorrow and last 72 hours. Both sides will also send delegations to Egypt to negotiate a more lasting truce. But Israeli troops in Gaza will remain in place and continue efforts to wipe out the tunnels that Hamas uses to attack Israel. Barry Peterson is in Gaza.
In a virtual declaration of victory, the chief of Israeli forces said they are a few days away from finding and destroying almost all the Hamas tunnels. There was no doubt that Israel would win the military part of this war. Now in Gaza, the question is the mental wounds that will emerge after the bombs stop falling.
I call it psychologically massacre cases.
Psychological massacre.
They will be in shock.
Gaza psychologist Sami Owaida has a grim prediction for how the shell-shocked and depressed will cope, made while bombs fell near us.
You will commit suicide and will die, or you will stay alive just to get revenge for your families who were killed or massacred.
So over here? Revenge brings us to Imran Kreka, an outgoing 15-year-old who likes tennis and computers. His bombed-out family now lives under blankets on a sidewalk. The Israelis teach their children, he said, that we will kill them, so they take revenge on us. This war has inspired his new ambition that he shares with chilling calm. I will be a suicide bomber, he said. I will blow myself up in Israel. From the angry mind of a teenager, a glimpse into the seeds of hatred sowed in one war that may well fuel the next one. The Palestinians estimate that more than 40% of the population of the Gaza Strip is 15 or under. Put another way, James, that means there's a lot of kids at the same impressionable age as Imran, making them prime targets for recruiting by Hamas.
Barry Peterson in Gaza City. Barry, thank you. At a news conference today, President Obama called on Hamas to release the Israeli soldier, assuming they have him, and he said the U.S. will continue trying to arrange a ceasefire. Bill Plant is at the White House. Bill?
Well, James, the president agreed today that the failure of the ceasefire will make it very difficult to put it back together, especially if the Israelis and the international community can't trust Hamas. But he disagreed that he or the U.S. could necessarily have done more. As the United States of America lost its influence in the world, have you lost yours?
Apparently, people have forgotten that America, as the most powerful country on earth, still does not control everything around the world. Our diplomatic efforts often take time. They often will see progress and then a step backwards. That's the nature of world affairs. It's not neat and it's not smooth.
But, said Mr. Obama, it's important that the U.S. continue to make the effort.
Part of the essential ingredient in American leadership is that we're willing to plunge in and try, where other countries don't bother trying.
And from the lectern where for years the Bush and Obama administrations denied that there was torture of terror suspects, there was this blunt admission.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right, but we tortured some folks. We did some things that were contrary to our values.
A Senate report on those tactics is due out very soon. And James, in a related manner, the president today gave CIA Director John Brennan a vote of confidence, despite Brennan's admission that the agency spied on Senate staffers working on that report.
Attorney General Eric Holder said today the Justice Department is monitoring the case of a New York City man who died in police custody last month. The city medical examiner ruled today that the death is a homicide caused by a police chokehold. Here's Anna Werner.
The medical examiner's office now says the cause of Garner's death was compression of the neck, the chokehold, combined with chest compression and prone positioning during the physical restraint by police. The examiner found Garner's asthma, hypertension, and obesity contributed to his death. The incident prompted protests across the city. Also, other videos of New York police using chokeholds began to surface. At a roundtable discussion at City Hall yesterday, Mayor Bill de Blasio promised reforms.
It would be a great disservice and injustice to not find change and reform out of this moment. And that's why we are gathered here.
The family of Eric Garner had no immediate statement. They plan to address the report tomorrow at a rally here in New York City. James, all 35,000 New York City police officers will be retrained on proper restraint techniques.
Anna, thank you. Now to the economy. Today's report from the Labor Department shows the job market is improving. Employers added 209,000 jobs last month, but not enough to meet demand. As more workers enter the job hunt, the unemployment rate ticked up to 6.2%. More now from Anthony Mason.
To be back in the workforce, just being out there.
Lori Barkley Struckman spent more than 2 years trying to find a full-time job before she finally was hired again this year.
And I literally was jumping up and down screaming. I got on the phone, I called my girls, I'm like, I finally got a job. This is Lori, how can I help you?
Working at a Minneapolis law firm since January, the 54-year-old office administrator had to get by on temp positions after she was laid off in November of 2011.
It tears you apart inside and out. You're so defeated from not even getting the chance that, I mean, it's hard to talk about it again, but you got to do it. You got to keep going.
3.1 million Americans are still counted as long-term unemployed. That means they've been out of work 27 weeks or more. But that's down from 4.2 million a year ago, in part because the economy's added 200,000 or more jobs for 6 straight months now.
We've seen job growth, but we really haven't seen much wage growth yet, have we?
No, we haven't. But with the good job growth, we know that better wage growth will come.
Ellen Zentner is an economist with Morgan Stanley.
And so the economy is strengthening. Fundamentally, we are getting better. And this long string of strong jobs reports is providing proof of that.
One reason for Zentner's optimism about wage growth, in 2009, there were 6 unemployed workers for every job opening. Now, that ratio is down to only 2 to 1.
There are more ways than one to consume marijuana, and that has led to a new problem in Colorado, where recreational use is legal. People are overdosing on edible pot that looks like a regular snack. John Blackstone reports a state panel took a look at that today.
From chocolate chip cookies to cupcakes, edible marijuana products have proven popular in Colorado since the state legalized marijuana use.
It's, granola, gummy bears, cereal, lotions, lip gloss. You name it, it's in it.
Diane Carlson is a member of Smart Colorado, which works to prevent young people from using marijuana products.
They can be sitting out on the cabinet and a child wouldn't even know there was marijuana in it.
A new state panel is looking for a way to mark the food itself.
Is there a way to do that?
Well, the challenge lies in marketing in such a way that a small child could understand it, and that's really difficult.
Gus Duarte is general manager of Harborside Health, the biggest marijuana dispensary in California, where medical marijuana has been legal for 18 years. Here, food products are packaged and labeled more like medicines than like snacks.
If I took this out, it would look like another ice cream bar of some kind, I take it.
Yes, it would look like what it is, sure.
Under new rules in Colorado, bite-sized food products will be limited to 10 milligrams or less of the psychoactive chemical THC. Sodas and other marijuana-infused liquids must be in child-resistant containers that clearly mark the serving size.
Whoever thought that everything you can possibly think of would be sprayed, injected, or infused with highly potent marijuana?
Final rules will be in place by November.
A single-engine plane crashed in a San Diego parking lot yesterday, killing a passenger and leaving the pilot seriously hurt. It was just one of a number of small plane crashes around the country this week. We asked Carter Evans to look into it.
The small plane clipped a building before crashing between a Costco and a Target store. The pilot reported losing power after the plane bounced on the runway during a landing attempt.
Oh my God, I'm not getting any altitude here. I'm full throttle. I'm going down.
Jeremy Dunkelberger recorded this video of bystanders pulling out the passenger. Moments later, he helped the pilot.
I stepped up on the wing and I was talking to her through the window and I said, we've got to get you out of this plane, it's on fire. And she said, my leg's broken, it's broken really bad, I'm pinned in here.
Over the last 24 hours, small planes have also crashed in Wisconsin and Alabama. This Florida crash on Sunday killed 2 beachgoers, including a 9-year-old girl. Between 2009 and 2013, there were more than 7,000 general aviation accidents. That's 4 a day, causing more than 2,000 deaths.
I'm climbing out here. I'm looking at other places near me.
California flight instructor Jimmy Grisiak trains pilots to always be on the lookout for a place to land in an emergency. But that can be dangerous to the pilot and people on the ground. This plane landed on one of the busiest highways in New York City, but sometimes that may be the only option.
Most pilots, all pilots, are trying to put the airplane in the most desirable place. So when things go wrong, we want the least collateral damage, possibility of injury.
The FAA tells us that loss of control is behind most fatal general aviation accidents. And James, the agency tells us it's currently working with pilots to reduce the number of deaths by 10% in 2018.
After the events that took place in Bangui, people have avoided coming because Muslims killed many people here. Now that's stopped, business is picking up and things are going well.
Also today, joining me in this discussion is Press TV's newsroom director, Hamid Reza Modi in Tehran, and from Belfast, I'm joined by Saib Schatz, author and Middle East affairs expert. Welcome to you both. I can start with you, Mr. Modi. First of all, 25 days into the Israeli onslaught on Gaza, in which direction do you see the situation going?
Well, children are getting killed on the ground. More than 300 children are getting killed on the ground in 25 days of war by Israel on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. And President Barack Obama talked just a couple of hours ago, and he said that Hamas has to show that it is a party to a ceasefire. There could be confidence in Hamas, and Hamas must release the Israeli soldier that it has captured a day earlier. So that, but there was no mention of the Palestinian children who've been killed by Israel. So President Barack Obama just talks about Hamas. He doesn't talk about Israel, how Israel is killing those defenseless people on the ground. The situation looks like the Palestinians are sending a very clear message to the whole world that this time around we're not gonna say yes to a ceasefire if there is gonna be a siege after that. So they say it very clearly. The message is very clear that no ceasefire until the siege, unless the siege is lifted, and the Palestinians can have freedom of movement. This time it is quite different. The two previous wars, the Palestinians agreed to a ceasefire after Israel killed many of them. But this time around, it's quite different. They're not going to say yes to a ceasefire, and the situation will definitely turn in their favor at the end of the day because there is international pressure on Israel, at least from the international public opinion. The world public opinion is turning against Israel. A lot of those people who thought maybe Hamas was responsible now have realized that Israel is responsible for the killing of those people because they see on television screens, thanks, and very few other media outlets that no, the children are getting killed. And who is killing the children? Israel is killing those children, not Hamas.
Given the fact that there's been many wars perpetrated against Gaza by the Israelis, and the fact that some alternative media have covered this and sent this message to the people of the world, how much has Israel become politically isolated?
Well, Israel has become isolated in the eyes of the international community, at least the people of the citizens of the world. But one important thing about media over here is that CNN, BBC, Sky News, Fox News, they have totally ignored the realities on the ground, and they are trying somehow to justify Israel's attack on Palestinian civilians and the killing of Palestinian women and children by pointing the finger of blame at the Hamas rocket fire. But you have to bear in mind, very important fact, that every Israeli from age of 16, between 16 and 60, are potentially soldiers, because they are members of the army and they can be called up to duty, and they have to go to war if Israel asks them to. So if Palestinians fire rockets at Israeli towns, they are firing rockets at soldiers, at military personnel, not at civilians. And if you've looked at the numbers, just 3 civilians have died in 26 days of Palestinian rocket fire. On the other hand, you have more than 1,600 Palestinians killed by Israeli bombings and shellings and unmanned aircraft, and most of those people are civilians, and many of them women and children. So you can't compare the two. So those army personnel, this military personnel, are killing civilians in Gaza. And the Palestinian people are clearly defending themselves against Israel. And the people of the world can see this. This time around, while BBC, CNN, Fox News, Sky News, and others are shamelessly silent, Al Jazeera is shamelessly silent, in the sense that the previous war, Al Jazeera was giving a very, very good coverage. But this time around, because Al Jazeera is in America right now, it's part of the American cable networks, it doesn't want to harm that relationship with the Zionist media lobbies inside the United States. So it is somehow trying to stay away from the conflict in the Gaza Strip. So on RT, you can see it's very much busy with Ukraine and Russia and the exchanges of accusations and the blame game that goes between Barack Obama and Vladimir Putin. And now Press TV is doing it all alone. Press TV is trying to give the realities on the ground to the people of the world. And the people of the world have noticed that, and they are watching, and they are trying to learn exactly what's going on the ground. And what we see on the ground is being reflected on during the demonstrations in London, in other parts of other capitals of the Western world, and people are angry, and people are asking for Israel to be brought to justice and for Benjamin Netanyahu to stand trial.
Ebola has claimed the lives of several persons in Liberia, and Ebola is fast spreading within the sub-region. So you can find out everywhere in Liberia, for Monrovia to be specific, people will have buckets with disinfectants in them. People wash their hands repeatedly to minimize the contact of Ebola. So Ebola is real. Ebola is a killer disease. I'm very much afraid, and I minimize my contacts and interactions with people as a result of Ebola.
El presidente del gobierno tiene la obligación, como todos.
The head of government is obliged, like everyone else, but more than everyone else, to enforce the law. And this referendum is illegal. Besides, it will harm all the Spaniards who live in Catalonia and in the rest of the country. So I told him the law, yes, but dialogue too.
Pero diálogo también. Con franqueza, no sé lo que ocurrirá el 9 de noviembre.
To be honest, I don't know what will happen on November 9th, but I only know that Mr. Mas has said that he will not do anything illegal, and I think this would be a very reasonable decision.
After the most deadly gas explosion to hit Taiwan in almost 20 years, people want answers. How could this happen? And who is responsible? The probe by the local government has identified the leaking gas as propane, a petrochemical material not intended for public use. Several petrochemical companies have pipelines built along the sewage system in the blast area. The problem now, which pipeline was carrying the propane? Local media have put LCY Chemical Corporation on top of the list of suspected culprits as it was pressurizing and delivering propane in the area Thursday night, just before the blast. But an official from LCY denied responsibility as he handed out a company statement to the press late Thursday night.
We carried out the initial inspection at the pipeline last night. There was no problem.
Another propane pipeline reportedly run by Taiwan's Chinese Petroleum Corporation detected abnormal pressure. But CPC quickly rebutted the report, claiming that the pipeline was not owned by the company. As the city of Kaohsiung pulls together to mourn its losses, it's obvious it will take time for the community to heal and find out how such a deadly blast could have happened.